Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today is Wednesday, and on Wednesdays I do my Q&A video where I basically answer your questions. And this week, actually, I had to do a bit of research for one of the questions, and it is a really interesting one. So let's get into it. So the first question comes from Canadian Price Variant, and he asked, is comic hoarding to be embraced or a problem that should be we should work on, one should work on dissipating? So I actually suffer from this personally, where like many comic collectors, we sort of get obsessed with getting that next book, or, oh, we got to get our weekly pulls. Well, it adds up. It adds up. You start getting, you start out with one long box, and then you get another long box, and then it's another, and then soon after you got like 10,000 comics. It adds up. And I'm personally at like 30,000 comics. And I've met people through doing this channel that have upwards of 100,000 comics. And I've heard rumors of people with 300,000 comics. So it's one of those things where it can be a problem, obviously. And I personally have done this too, where I've spent too much money on comics, and I actually gotta sort of watch myself. And it was a bit of a problem for me, especially during COVID. I would actually say that a lot of comic collectors kind of overdid it during COVID. And I was one of those guys. I bought too much stuff. I spent too much money. I actually got into debt with, buying too much comics. And you can see that. You can see all the comics I bought. It's one of those things. It's especially during COVID, I think there was that situation where you're stuck at home. You have nothing better to do. You have extra money in a way because you're not taking trips. You're not going out as much. So you have kind of that best and worst situation kind of going on, where you really just, start surfing on the internet. You're kind of nostalgic to certain things that maybe different times when you were younger or whatever. You start buying stuff, and it's an addiction. And I admit that I have that addiction. And it is something that you have to, I would say, find that balance between that hoarder and somebody who's a collector that's curating, who is like sort of deciding what books to get, what books not to get, how many books to get. And you got to have that sort of self-control. And sometimes I admit, I don't often exhibit that self-control, but it's one of those things that I'm working on. It's like, almost like a recovering addict. Like I feel like this channel is my Alcoholics Anonymous kind of situation, where you get up and you say, oh, I've been collecting comics for this long. It's kind of one of those things. So as I said, it's one of those things you got to find your balance. I'm personally trying to find my balance. I'm trying to cut back on the big spends, but right now is like a different type of perfect storm for the collector, especially somebody like myself, where I really sort of go down all these rabbit holes and sort of get into the books. And it's one of those things where right now the market is so good for buyers, for collectors, that there's a lot of tempting situations where you can buy a lot of really great books for great prices. And it's very tempting. It's very tempting. So, I always have to kind of, say, okay, I'm not going to buy any more today. I'm not going to buy any more today. I got to kind of control myself. So I think it's something that, if you're spending more than what you have, that's a problem. If you're buying too many comics and you don't have the room for those comics, then it's a problem. So you got to figure out, and sometimes you got to see what other people are saying. If other people are telling you, hey, maybe you're buying too many comics, then maybe you have a problem. So look for those things, look for those cues, and find that balance that I was talking about. So I hope that answers the question. It's maybe not what people want to hear. People want to hear, oh, he's going to get a million more comics. Well, probably, but I got to be realistic as well. So that's my answer to that question. Ronald Burgess asked, how long did it take you to get your books into your new house? Well, with the new house, I got a moving company. So it was a moving company that moved the books into the house. And it was a pretty long process. So preparing all the boxes, like we kind of wrapped them up. I had a lot of raw, like slabs and stuff that needed to be boxed, and it took me like a month really just to box everything up and get it prepared. But then the whole moving process, it was a day to get all the books and all the stuff into the moving van. It was a temperature controlled moving van, so that was good. One good thing. Then it was 3 days or 2-3 days between when they left my house until they delivered it to my new house. And then it was one long day that they took to bring it here. And when they brought it here, they literally just dumped it in the room. they at least brought it up into the attic, because it's all like, it's pretty far up, especially when you're carrying long boxes. It's kind of it's a bit of a journey. They dumped it all in the room, and then I've been sorting it ever since. And now I've been here like a couple weeks now. So it's it's a bit of a process, and I actually brought one load of books as well with me when I came to Ottawa. So, it was a bit of a moving process. With this many books, it does become a bit of a hassle. So I don't recommend it. Kind of goes back to that first question. So next question is a really good one. This is the one I had to do some research for. Junior... sorry. Who wrote? I'm trying to find out who asked me this question. Great. I didn't write down the name. Somebody asked. I didn't write down their name. How smart of me. I think it's Junior God Comics. Dude. Okay. Oh my goodness. I almost had like one of those mental breakdowns. JR asked me this question. I was like, I had this really cryptic note on my on my paper. I was like, okay, it's JR. Okay, it's JR asked me this. JR asked me, do you have the issue or know if it's real or a made up cover? And what he's talking about is there's a comic called God Comics #2. And it's like it's a really cool looking thing. It's like God kind of storming through a door. You got Hitler, and he's like crucifying Jesus. Okay, and it's like a 10-cent cover. Okay, so it looks like a Golden Age book, and it's one of those covers that was floating around the internet because people were like, "Oh, where do you get this comic? What is this comic?" And so it's called God Comics #2, issue #2, right? So I had to do some research. So he gave me at least the keyword that you use to find the comic, to at least see what it looks like. It is, if you search God Comics and Hitler, then you will find a photo of the cover. So I did that, and I did some research, but I also knew a little bit, because I know a bit of stuff. And there's a couple places, if you ever have this issue where you're trying to find a random comic, and you don't know anything about it, you don't know where to find it, you don't know, what it is or anything, there's a couple tricks that you can do. One, go to mycomicshop.com, and they have a pretty good inventory of comics. And even if they don't have the comic, they will show the comic cover, and they'll show like all the information about it, which is great. So you can go there, search for the comic, and see if it's there. If it's not there, well, that's kind of might be a suggestion that it's not a real comic. The next thing you can do is try comics.org. And if you try that, you can search through and kind of find, and if that doesn't lead to anything, then again, you might realize that it's not a comic. So in this case, I knew a little bit more. So there's actually a really interesting book. It's this one, Savage Dragon #31. And there's actually two versions of this. This is God versus the Devil. And this is the restricted one. This one, actually, I believe they recalled it because there's a lot of people that were a little bit upset about the idea of God versus the devil. And there was some issue where it was like spelled some things in some of the, I believe, in his hair or something. I forget where it is. It's like, yeah, so it's not, it had some issues, okay? So inside of this comic, though, in the centerfold, and I'll find it, is God Comics #2. And it's kind of a great cover. So this is not a real comic. It's not it was never, like, it's just like a, kind of just a silly, it looks like a Golden Age comic. It's not a Golden Age comic. It is literally just the centerfold of this comic. And you can see it's pretty funny looking. It's got not Jesus, but God jumping through the window. Hitler is literally crucifying Jesus, which is kind of crazy. And you got little like Hitler Nazi flag in, I believe that's the United States. So that's pretty great. Just some craziness going on. So it's not a real comic. It is just a mock-up. But it was kind of like a joke by Eric Larson, who writes Savage Dragon. So if you ever want to buy that book, just search for Savage Dragon, issue 31. And you have to get the special version because there's God versus the Devil, which is the kind of more risque one, but that has been, I think it was either recalled or like they came out with a toned down one, Good versus Evil instead. But that's the one you want, this one. Okay, so yes, I do have that issue. I like these more obscure things, and I like kind of quirky history. So I picked that book up for that reason. I picked it up a while ago, actually. So I like kind of controversial stuff. Okay, so next. Next question was from Comic Book Ninja. And this is the last question, actually. What are your thoughts on the big announcement from DC's new future film and TV slate announced by James Gunn? Okay, so James Gunn did just recently, I mean, as I'm recording this video, it was like 12 hours ago that he released his slate, the slate of future projects up to like 2025, so a couple years going into the future, of movies and TV series that they're working on. And I was actually, I could see the James Gunn element to it. He called the video Gods and Monsters. So James Gunn is one of those people who likes taking obscure characters and then putting them to prominence. So if you look at like Peacemaker or Guardians of the Galaxy, he likes those obscure characters, or Suicide Squad is a really great example of that. He likes the obscure characters. He likes bringing them to prominence. And this slate of movies and TV series kind of has that feel to it. So one of them that he announced was, the very first one that he announced was Creature Commandos. I have no idea what Creature Commandos is, but he was, it's a cartoon series that might have a live action version, and they're going to have the same voice people. It could be interesting. It could be, depends on how it's done. I have no idea. The next one was Waller, which is Amanda Waller, and she's a character that, in a way, has been kind of getting more and more prominence because of the Suicide Squad movies, and she's also used in the Peacemaker series, and I believe she was even used in Shazam, or not Shazam, Black Adam. So, there's a few places where they kind of brought her to prominence already. So she's a kind of almost a known character in terms of the greater picture of things. So yeah, so she's going to have her own little series, and they're going to, make it something interesting. And it could be one of those things where, again, it's bringing out those quirky characters that James Gunn seems to love. The next thing that he talked about, and I actually think this could be good, is Superman Legacy. And the photo that they showed was from I forgot the name of the series. I think Superman Kingdom Come, or one of those ones. It's a really good series. And just, so he looks like he's going to adapt really good stories for Superman, which would be great. I think that the Superman movies have a tendency of not adapting the best stuff. This looks like he's going to adapt good content, so it could be a good choice. And he looks like he's going to use something where it really gives that traditional Superman back into DC movies, which is hopefully going to be good. The next thing he talked about was lanterns, and really he saw it as kind of like a detective thing, plus kind of like almost like a cop thing, almost like with these the lanterns, Green Lanterns being like sort of like space police, and really, but taking it down to Earth in this one with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart. So it could be good. I don't know. Looked a little gritty. Depends on how they go with it. There was so little details. You never know how these things can go. It could be played well, it could be played terribly. But from what I can see, it looked okay. Looked legit. Next one was The Authority. I have no idea what's The Authority, but basically it sounded like a bunch of superheroes. I think it was based on Wildstorm. That basically are characters that are trying to fix what's wrong with superheroes, which is kind of interesting. I think that's kind of an interesting concept and could be really interesting. Like sometimes it's good that a director like James Gunn is involved, where he's willing to take risks and introduce new characters and many characters to the common culture. So I think that's good. I as a comic collector, like I like those kind of obscure characters getting more limelight. But the other thing that he's doing, which I thought was interesting, was he's doing a series called Paradise Lost, which is really looking at Paradise Island, which is Wonder Woman. So he's going to those traditional characters. He's going to Batman Legacy. He's going Superman Legacy, and he also said he's going to Brave and the Bold, which is kind of cool. And he said he's going to have Damien, which is one of the Joe Robins that was his favorite. He said, and that's cool. Those are kind of more legacy things. So I think that's kind of cool that he's going to bring back some of that more traditional stories, I guess. Like, it's kind of nice that they bring back some of the heritage of these major characters. So he's going to do the quirky characters and these kind of legacy characters, which is really nice to see. He also mentioned Booster Gold, and I heard this rumor for a while that they were going to do something with Booster Gold. Even before there was a James Gunn involved with the DCU, I heard that they were planning on doing something with a Booster Gold. I think Booster Gold is a fun, quirky character. I'm kind of looking forward to that one, actually. I like time travel as well, so I think this could be interesting. Next one was they're going to do a feature film with Supergirl, which could be good. I like the female superheroes, and Supergirl is kind of a cool character, so I'd like to see that done well. I actually watched the Supergirl TV series. There was moments where it was a bit cringy, but for the most part, I actually didn't mind it too much. And the other thing that my son, I know, would love is Swamp Thing. That they're going to do a feature film with Swamp Thing. I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. I think a lot of fans love Swamp Thing and really want to see Swamp Thing get his own, finally get the recognition that he deserves as a cool character. So it sounds like, a lot of this stuff, it depends on how it's done, but it sounds like pretty promising. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how they can make these movies into reality. So I'm kind of bold. I have a bright future in mind for what DCU is going to be doing. And I think that James Gunn might be the man that can pull it all together and make it happen. So I'm looking forward to it. I think we won't really see the James Gunn effect in terms of the movies that are created and how his hand plays a role in that until not this year. Even though, like, really, he had some executive decision on stopping certain movies from being produced and even canning some movies. Just like Batwoman was totally destroyed. Like that was, that was, or was it Batgirl? I think it was Batgirl actually. That was totally canned, right? But even though he had those decisions and he said, okay, move forward with this movie, release this movie or, do whatever, we're not going to really see James Gunn's true hand involved until next year, I think. Because, a lot of these movies were already being developed before James Gunn got this role. So it's really, I would say, like, he at least greenlit them. So we know that he liked them enough that they should be released. He liked Black Adam, for example, enough to get it released. And Black Adam, I personally enjoyed the movie. I thought it could be better, but I did enjoy it. And I really felt like they threw The Rock under the bus in terms of the way it was treated. I think Rock really put himself into that movie and it just didn't go anywhere for him. So I felt bad for Rock on that one. But I think that James Gunn, his influence won't really be felt until next year. And then we'll see the types of stuff that get created based on James Gunn's vision, which will be either good or bad. But based on some of the stuff that he's created, I mean, he did do the Peacemaker show, so I enjoyed that. So I think he is very promising. I mean, and I do enjoy the Guardians of the Galaxy. So he did great work at Marvel. Let's see if he can do some more great work at DC. I'm willing to give him that chance. And I'd like to see, finally, like, I don't believe that there's real fatigue with superhero movies. I don't believe it's the fatigue that's happening. It's bad writing that we're fatigued with. We're tired of bad movies being made. Make good movies and people will want to watch them. Make good TV series, people will want to watch them. So both Marvel and DC had sort of lost their way for a while. Let's hope that James Gunn can find that way back and really engage the audiences and give them what they want, which is just a good story. So that is this week's Q&A. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have a question, even something obscure like, God Comics #2, just ask me and I'll do some research. I'll try to find out some answers for you. And if I have the book in my collection, I will show it. And you can ask me to show whatever you want me to show as well. So thanks again for watching. Bye for now.